with government, specifically local government. Real quick, if you're not familiar with SGR, I just want to say a little something about them because I really like them. I'm not getting paid to say this part, but SGR, Strategic Government Resources, is really, they were one of the first early adopters and first folks to really push AI in local government. They do a lot of work with leadership consulting, especially with their servant leadership course, as well as recruitment and things like that. The folks at SGR, just top-notch individuals. I love all the folks out there at SGR. So for the folks in this room, those in the webinar, I'm sure you're already familiar with that being here at the webinar, but if you're not familiar with SGR, governmentresource.com, take a look at them. They're an incredible resource in local government. So why start with data collection, right? So we talk about data. The first thing, if you're doing any type of analysis, Brett and the folks in Yuma, the analysts back there, I'm sure you guys know this, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you have good data collection efforts and know what you're looking for, it really helps, right? Data fuels all the AI insights. And ways we can do that is through, really the key of data in local government specifically, and really any enterprise, is that of trust, right? We want to be able to trust the data. We want to be able to have people who are filling out our surveys or filling out their different things we're trying to get information from, trust our processes as well too. And then once we have the data collection, we have the surveys and forms, we can then move into things like simple tools and putting things into Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, stuff like that. And then from there, probably the most important point of data collection is, what do you do with the data, right? So quick side story, I was talking to the head of data analytics for this small enterprise called the Arizona Coyotes back in the day when they were still around here. And I was asking him, how do you make sure that the data you're collecting is actionable? And he provides some really good insights of just making sure that every piece of data we collect, there's an outcome for that data. What's the data, what we're trying to drive as an outcome, and not just collecting data just to have information for the sake of it, and then you get a bunch of white noise. So how do we collect better data, right? The key thing is to target specific community services or community needs, be specific what we're looking for. We want to use clear, concise language. We want to incorporate both structured, multiple choice, and open-ended questions. Something on this too, AI is really, really good, or becoming increasingly better, I should say, at sentiment analysis. So while previously our data collection, specifically, I'm going to pick on local government because that's where I work in, but specifically in local government, our data collection efforts have really been limited by multiple choice questions, right? You think of the typical data form. What we typically do is we have, different questions we have on there, and then there's a note section where people will just fill in whatever they want to fill in. And typically in government, what we do is we ignore that note section because it's unstructured, it's messy, we can't get much out of it. We ignore that and then focus on the stuff we can easily quantify and visualize. Well, the gold is really in that note section, because that's where people are putting their unfiltered raw thoughts into that. And so now with AI, we can pull those insights out and be able to track that over time, over multiple responses, and get some really, really good insights from that. Something we are exploring in Maricopa specifically is, how do we have that unstructured data where people are able to tell us exactly how they feel, what they're thinking, without having to put them in boxes of multiple choice or standard forms like that. So what we're going to do here is I want to transition from here into kind of a demonstration of what AI can do, right? It's enough for me to just talk about, here's what AI can do, PowerPoint slide fun. I want to get into ChatGPT and show you exactly how you can do this quickly and easily using AI, and how fast, how easy, and how powerful these tools are. So bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to stop my screen share here. I'm going to open up ChatGPT over here. And bear with me. Okay, there we go. All right. So first thing first I want to do is I just want to show you how quickly and easy it is to create a form on ChatGPT. So what we'll do here is create a community survey for the town of Somerton, AZ, to gauge community interest in a new park. And pretty brief, right? Obviously, if I was working in Somerton, I have some more insight into exactly what I'm looking for. So that institutional knowledge is really important for steps like this. I could specifically say, in this location, here's where I want the amenities to be and have something like that. But you can see here, it's going to create me a quick survey. Do you think Somerton needs a community park? How often do you and your family visit parks here? So you have all this right here, which is great, right? All this insight right here. And then we could do a couple things here. Number one is I could export this as a Word file. So I could say export as Word, and it'll give me a link. It'll give me a downloaded Word document that I can then open up and put my city logo on it. I can change the things. If I want question 1 to be question 3, I can do it that way. The other thing we can do too as well is we can actually copy and paste that entire form into a Google Forms. And then you're done. That's it, right? All in one full swoop of what you're doing there. And here is our Somerton Community Park Survey right here. I can download it and it'll give me this guy right here. So open it up and you can see we will have our community park survey right there. Now, it did ask me if I want a Spanish version, so I think it's inferring and using its knowledge of the area to say, okay, hey, I have a lot of Spanish speakers here, maybe do that way. The one thing I would say about translation in ChatGPT is sometimes it doesn't get like regional dialects right, and sometimes we'll take like Spain Spanish and put in there instead of Latin American Spanish. So just be careful of that too. So you want to be pretty specific of what you're exactly looking for. And if you're doing any type of translation with ChatGPT or AI, highly, highly, highly recommend you have someone who knows how to speak that language and is fluent in the language, do a review. Otherwise, you could be, you could be in a bad spot as a city or as an organization. So you'll make sure you have, because you really want to get their feedback, right? You want to get everybody involved. You want to get the whole community feedback, and we don't want to alienate people simply because of language. So we have the opportunities to do that now with AI, but just be careful, have a good translator on staff, right? And don't just assume ChatGPT is going to be right. Probably really, really close, but just to make sure. The other thing too is we can do here is I want to bring in a couple of data sets from my files here. And what this is these are data sets on kind of housing and housing development and housing prices across Yuma County. So I'm gonna grab a new chat here and I'm gonna bring in a file here. This is all from a combination of the Federal Reserve as well as from the Census Bureau and Bureau of Labor Statistics. So fairly reputable sources. And so here I'm going to say is I want you to act as an analyst for the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation. Yay! And give me insights on the state of housing in Yuma County over the last 5 years. So this is really where AI becomes kind of an assistant for you, right? AI, I've been in the analysis world my entire life, right? That's how I got to where I'm at now as a deputy city manager in Maricopa. I started out as an analyst and kind of worked my way up the food chain in different organizations. So I've done a lot of analysis. AI is really, really good, right? It's probably one of the best data analysts there is out there, just in terms of its capability, what it can provide. The one thing that analysts today still have is that political and social capability, right? To know exactly what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's going to work for this context, right? The AI is not going to know if today's not a good day to bring this up with your boss, right? You can just kind of tell, like, hey, he's kind of in a mood, probably not bring this up today. AI is not going to know that. That's why we need good human analysts always to be able to have that intuition there. So it's going to give me here, it found a monthly housing inventory, median listing price per square foot, median days on market, subprime credit score, home price dispersion index, housing price sustainability index. So it asks me, what would like me to do? Visualize the trends for these indicators for the last 5 years, compare them with income and employment data sets to assess affordability, or do a written narrative first, then support it with charts. And I'm going to ask it to do it, to recommend something. Recommend something. I just want to know how this has changed in our economy. And I'm being really, really broad. I'm also misspelling words on purpose. That way you can see it knows what you're talking about, right? You don't have to be a master speller, which is probably my favorite part of AI because I was homeschooled, so spelling doesn't work very well for me, right? So, and you can see here, right? So it gives me some affordability, right? And then we can bring in inventory and market activity, sales volumes, and it's giving me all this insight right here directly from my sources, which again is coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it's a reputable source. The one thing I would say also when you're doing stuff like this, it's always a good idea to double check your work and to make sure that what it's saying on the screen is actually accurate as well too. So just make sure, and I would do the same thing if my staff is going to give me something that I need to present to the city manager or the council. I'm not just going to take it and say, oh, good to go. I'm not even going to look over this. I'm going to look over it, right? Not because I don't trust my staff, but because I want to make sure that I represent the city well, represent myself well. And if I sign my name to something, doesn't matter who wrote it. If I wrote it, my staff wrote it, AI wrote it. If I sign my name to it, I'm responsible for it. So having that personal responsibility is super important. So you can see here's some stuff here, some summary here. And what I want to do here is I'm just going to copy this right here, scroll down right here. And then I'm going to scroll up a little bit so you can see. I'm going to click on this link right here and say, visualize this. And it'll go through and it'll create a quick visualization for me. And you can change the chart type. So here we go. Here's some key housing metrics right there. And we can have that there. And you can see too, this is a little smaller because there's such a big difference in the graph here. So maybe you want to switch the graph around how you want to do that. The other thing I want to show you then is this. So with visualizations, right? Let's talk a little bit about visualizations. A lot of time what we get in our data is maybe you have the visualization, but you don't have the raw data, right? So maybe you have a chart, but you're like, okay, how do I get this chart into a format I can actually understand and get insights on? So what I want to do here is I'm going to add some files, some reports. This is from the Arizona has their I think it's DPS has their crime statistics online and things like that they put out there. So this is from Yuma PD from 2020 to 2024. I'll add one caveat because I oversee police and fire and public safety in the city of Maricopa. DPS statistics aren't always accurate. So just if you see stuff on here, please know this is not necessarily accurate in terms of what DPS is reporting. There's some nuance there. And I know I've noticed things in Maricopa's DPS dashboard that's not always 100% accurate. So I don't want you all calling up Yuma PD saying, what's going on, guys? Why? Just probably context is important here. So here is I want to say is I want to see the 5-year trends for property crime in Yuma. I should say crime here. There we go. So it's going to give me, this is all property crime data. And while it's analyzing that, let me pull it up real quick. That way you can see exactly what this looks like. And you can see what we're working with. So I'm going to open up just one of them randomly. And you can see here, it is just a series of bar charts. That is all it is, right? There's nothing else besides just bar charts. That's it. Bar charts and that's it. So we're going to see if I can find some insights. And this is only year over year, right? It's only 1 year at a time. So what I'm trying to do is see if I can take the year snapshots and take a 5-year trend of that data then. And so here we go. We have a data table here, burglaries, motor vehicle theft, fraud, arson, larceny, and then property crime trends. And right there, it builds me a visualization, which I think is a pretty cool visualization, is you can see that property crime overall in Yuma is declining, right? Which is a really, really cool thing. So if we think about economic development and things like that, one of the most important pieces of economic development is public safety. And so here, when you're, Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, when you're looking for a new business to come in, you can say, look, guys, Yuma PD is doing a phenomenal job, and look at the crime rates that are happening, right? Property crime specifically has a direct tie to economic development. So you can say, look, our property crime rate is declining over the years. And we can see the same thing too. We can say, do a per capita analysis of property crime in Yuma from 2020 to 2024. And here, what it's going to do is going to search the web to find kind of what's the population of Yuma over the last 4 years, and it provide that data before. It's going to go out and get that data and then give us a trend here. And so the same thing here, and look at that, 25.7, 23.6, all the way down to 16.1. So round of applause for Yuma PD. Phenomenal job over there, because you can see direct impact. And again, be able to take this to your businesses, be able to take this to your community, and any community you're doing this with as well too. It doesn't have to just be Yuma. You can see, all right, here's the direct tie-in, and we grab this from basically snapshots from Arizona DPS, able to piece that together, and then we see some really good insights over a 5-year trend. So that to me, it's exciting because it tells a really cool story, right? And that's what we want to do with data. We want to tell the right story. We want to see what's actually going on and see what's the impact there. So the other thing we can do too then with visualizations is, let me grab another one. Let's start a new chat right here. Let me grab another image here. Go over here, grab my images. And just so I can make sure I'm grabbing the right one, I'm going to do extra large icon so I can see it. Okay. So this image right here, I'll pull it up so you can see it first. That we know what we're talking about. Images. I think it's this guy right here, hopefully. Yep, this is the one. So let me zoom in here so you can see. This is Yuma County, Arizona, United States. I believe this is from the Arizona Corporation Authority, or something like that. So what I'll do here is I want to say, first determine where this is from, and then I want to put this in table format so I can better visualize. Okay, so it's GDP growth rate, which I think is correct. Yuma County. All right, and now it's in a better format for me, so I can actually do some stuff with it. Because sometimes we build visualizations. Another thing with government data is sometimes we build visualizations, but it's not very clean, not very clear. It can get cluttered, it can get messy. So maybe we want to have a different way of visualizing this. We're like this is really cool data, it just doesn't tell the story I want it to tell, right? It can get lost. Picking the right visualization is extremely important when we're doing data. So I'm going to say I want to build a better chart to more clearly tell the story of Yuma. So it's going to recommend some charts. Here we go. Please create the chart. I'll think about it, and then I'll create the chart for me, hopefully in a better format here. I think we're having trouble with the screen. Let me see here. Yep, okay, we're still screen sharing. Had a note here on the webinar. So now we have a little better visualization, and it calls out the COVID-19 impact right there too, which is an important piece of information there, right? So now we can see, all right, so it's not like just a dip for the sake of a dip. We know contextually what happened here. And you can see also, again, storytelling, look at the strong rebound right here after COVID-19. Look at how that really improved, and you're really back at pre-pandemic levels in a really short period of time, which is really, really cool. So that's just again some quick insights that we can get just using visualizations and using data and things like that. The other piece of data I want to show you is probably one of my favorite tools of ChatGPT and things like this. It's called Deep Research. If you've been in the webinar before, you've seen me talk about this as well, but I want to show you something because I think it's interesting for data and for economic development. So I'm going to pull open this guy right here. And what I have here is the City of Yuma Targeted Industry Report from July of 2022. It's 141 pages, super awesome, right? And if I'm the town of Somerton, I'm thinking, man, I wish I had the budget to do something like that. That'd be pretty cool, right? But these things like this, they take time, they take money, which is something that a lot of our small towns, at least when I was a town manager in Miami, we didn't have that luxury, right? We had to kind of make do with what we had. Well, if I had ChatGPT, I could do something really cool. So what I'm going to do here is I have I'm going to upload this to my document here. And let's go back to my file, reports, target industry report. I'm going to click on deep research right here, which is this little icon. I'm going to say, I'm with the town of Somerton, and I want to duplicate this for my town. Can you please do that in deep research? And the first thing we'll do is it'll go through and ask me a couple clarifying questions just to make sure it's at the right, give me the right thing. Other tools that can do this as well. Grok has a really good deep research tool, as well as Google Gemini has a deep research embedded into it as well. The other one is Perplexity AI has a deep research tool. To me, I think in terms of output and the robustness of the sources, Grok and ChatGPT are my favorite ones to use. The really cool thing about Gemini Deep Research is you can actually export that directly into your Google Docs, which is a pretty cool. So if you're a Google, if you use Google as an organization, you just take that, click a button, and it exports to a Google Doc. So here it goes, going to give me some specific questions here. And again, I'm just going to copy this right here, right here, right here. And for the intended use is for economic development. Want to follow the exact same yes, please. For this one, no, I don't. No, I just want you to do it yourself. Now preferred. Okay, so it'll model very closely to it. It's going to work here. While it's working in the background, I'll show you a couple other things we can do here as well with ChatGPT. That way, it takes a little bit of time for it to develop, but you'll see at the end of the time, you're going to have a pretty robust targeted industry report specific to Somerton, and you'll be able to save a ton of resources and money. So, consultants, I'm sorry, but I like local government better, so it's okay. No, then there's still room for consultants, still room for stuff like that too. So one of the things that we can do with here, obviously, when anything like this too, right? You still want that local expertise. You want that insight, that knowledge that other agencies, other communities can bring in. Things like the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation can bring in to really hone in on, okay, here's what your data is saying. What does that mean, right? What does that mean contextually for the town of Somerton? What does that mean specifically? So those are things that we really want, good support and robust partnerships with people all across. So the other thing we can do too here is we can also pull in data just directly, right? We were bringing in files this way. We were bringing in reports, bringing in documents. We can also have ChatGPT go out and find data for us as well. So we can say, find data on housing trends and population for each town and city in Yuma County, and put that into a table. So give me 1 second here. All right. So here we go. It's going to bring in some sources here. Comprehensive list, median home value, median sale price, 1 year change, days on market. So now what we can do is we can actually have it again, think of ways to visualize this. So I can say, what's the top 5 ways to visualize this data? Line chart, trend over time. So different examples you can see here. So you're not stuck with only one. And I would recommend too, if you're doing data, stuff like this, utilize ChatGPT to really be kind of a brainstorming partner to say, hey, what would make sense for this data? How can I do that? Recommend something, build. It takes 2 seconds to build these charts, not quite 2, maybe 2.5, but it takes a really short amount of time to build these charts. And so if you like the first one, you just build a second one, right? And you think about the time that we normally spend building visualizations, especially this time of year, we're getting to our budget season or our new fiscal year for Arizona. How much time is spent building these different charts and visualizations and things like that for our councils? Well, now instead of having to say, well, it's going to have to work because council meeting's on Tuesday and it's Monday. Well, too easy just to throw the data in there to ChatGPT and have it spit out a different visualization that really tells your organization's story. So it's going to give me a couple of things here: heat map table, scatter plot, and I'm going to have it generate the heat map table. I'm going to say, do this, please. The one thing too you'll notice with all the data I'm putting in here, it's just for a quick sidebar while it's doing this. Every piece of data that I put in here is publicly available, right? I've not put anything in here that's not already publicly available, right? From the Bureau of Labor Statistics, from the Federal Reserve, from uscensus.gov. These are all publicly available information. Even the stuff on the crime stuff is stuff that's already published by DPS on their website, right? I just go grab it from the website, good to go. Publicly available information. Luckily for us in local government, all of your data is publicly available for the 99.999% of it, with the rare exception of maybe some law enforcement data and some HIPAA data on your fire EMS side. Everything else is basically already publicly available. So you can do a lot of really cool stuff, especially a lot of your historical stuff you already have that's already published online. Grabbing that insight can be really, really powerful and super helpful to be able to visualize trends over time. So we can say, we'll do it here in a second. We can say, okay, based on the 5-year trends of housing that we saw, let's predict the next 5 years of housing, or predict the next 5 years of crime trends as well. You can do some forecasting as well with that. So here we go. Here's maybe a little better visualization of what we're seeing for home prices and population metrics in Yuma County cities. But just some quick, easy ways to visualize that data. Let's go back over here. Oh, not quite there yet. We're still working there. Okay. You block this off down here. Here we go. So let's now take a step back and go back to what we were doing with the housing conversation. So here we go. We have this. We were talking before on this chat about housing in Yuma, the median home price. So let's say, can we do a 10-year look back at median price per square foot and median sale price and any other relevant data, and then use that to forecast the next 3 years? And you'll see, like, there's some really powerful tools out there when it comes to forecasting and things like that. Something we're exploring now internally is some stuff with something called Neural Profit, which is an extremely powerful tool right now. It actually was used to analyze and forecast web traffic. We found it extremely applicable for police calls for service. And so it has like a 95 to 99% accuracy rate of predicting where calls for service are by subdivision or by different areas and beats within our city, which is extremely helpful because think about, again, economic development really tied to public safety. And when we are able to say, hey, look, these apartments that we're building here, they do not actually drive crime rates up, right? We actually have less crimes per unit in the apartment complexes than we do in the subdivisions. We're also able to show how vacant land around subdivisions actually does a lot for driving up crime. I say driving up, like it's an increase, but for increasing nominally some of those crime rates in our community, a lot of it is the proximity to vacant land. So the more development we have, we're actually seeing crime rates go down because there's not the vacant land around it. So be able to see what are the factors for that, be able to dig deep in the data and say, okay, what is actually driving crime up? What is actually the factors that are caused by this? Instead of having a citywide methodology that says, well, we have this many calls for service citywide, that's not always going to be the right insight to get from it, because then we might conclude, okay, it's fine across the city. Well, what if only one area is the one that's actually driving the rates up, right? And that also helps us with more focused patrol, focused efforts, focused community engagement to be able to help those in needs and help victims and hold offenders accountable in those areas. So here we go. Here is our little fun chart right here we can see. And it's going to give me the last 10 years of median listing price per square foot in Yuma County, and then give me a little forecast over the next 3 years right here. So pretty stable but consistent growth is what it's saying based on the data, right? This is extremely, extremely helpful if you're thinking of your budget for your city budget, right? So one of the things you want to look at your city budget is, what is your actuals over the last 5-10 years? Not what did you budget, but what are your actuals at? And then you can use those actuals to forecast what your next budget should be, right? Comparing actuals to actuals, not budgeted to budgeted, because budgeted, those are guesses, right? We're kind of guessing what we're going to do. If you compare actuals to actuals, you get a better picture of the health and stability of your organization. And then you can use that to forecast down as well too. So, and you can drill down as well. You can do the same thing with your department data, with different revenue sources by type. So if it's general fund, HERF, which is the highway user revenue fund in Arizona, and things like that. So let's go back here when we are close to being done here with Somerton. One more thing I'll show you here, just in terms of being able to quickly find data, find insight as well, is a lot of what we do in local government is grants and whatnot, and data for grants is extremely important. And so you can use ChatGPT to do this as well too. So let's say I am applying for a CBDG grant for the construction of a pedestrian overpass in Yuma, AZ. What data sources do I need to best position my grant application for success? Other thing you can do too with this, I've done this in a previous webinar, is you can actually have ChatGPT build your entire grant for you as well. So you can actually go in, give it the information, and then say, okay, now build the grant for me. And it does a lot of that all together, right? And what the cool thing about that is it's able to go through and find what are the grants that actually succeeded, and then use that same narrative style, narrative prose, the insights, like what is it putting in there that's actually working and not working. And that way we're not banging our head against the wall with this. So it's going to give me some ideas. So traffic and pedestrian volume data, safety crash statistics, demographic and socioeconomic data, planning feasibility studies, funding and grant alignment, community engagement support. So you can have different data sources right here. And I could go here and copy this right here and say, can you go out and find this data for me? And it'll go out, you can provide direct links to it. That way you can go in exactly and either download the data or have ChatGPT bring it for yourself and do that right there. So here we go, traffic vehicle counts. And here's the link right here. Yes.
It's not showing on the screen.
I'll show the screen. Let me see here.
Yeah, maybe just hit the down arrow.
Let me see here. Down arrow.
No, on the ChatGPT.
Let's see here. Okay. Click right here. Does that work? No. Bear with me 1 second, folks, having some technical difficulties on our end over here. We're still not showing that. Let me disconnect my screen and reconnect it here. Disconnect. And then Windows K again. Some nice music here.
Maybe this is a good opportunity.
So, yep. Okay, we should be good.
Oh, you're good.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Thank you all on the webinar for that little bit of technical challenge there. But you can see it'll go out and find me the exact sources here. I was able to pull up this portal right here. You can go out and find the exact data you want to get, drill down here specifically, and then off the races. So with what I find in grant applications specifically, I want to show this in the data part of our conversation and data analytics for this webinar and meeting here, is the most time-consuming part of grant applications isn't the narrative writing, right? That's pretty standard, pretty easy. The most time-consuming part is going and finding your data, making sure it's there, getting everything put together. That's the hardest part of grant applications is getting the data side of it. Well, ChatGPT just sped that process up about tenfold. So really, really powerful and really cool there. So the Somerton thing is about done here. And I know we like to end our webinars with SGR at 9:45. So I want to do something real quick here is while this is finishing up, Lisa, is there any questions in the chat and any questions out here in the audience as well too? But any questions in the chat, Lisa? And I'll repeat the
Yes.
questions for folks over here as well too.
Yes, John was wanting to know 2 questions. One, how reliable is the free version of ChatGPT versus the 4.0 version that you're using? And if they wanted to use ChatGPT to create charts for social media, do you think it's okay to upload those files to ChatGPT?
So 2 questions. How reliable is the free version versus this version right here? Well, that's a really easy answer because ChatGPT is only on their free version. They're using 4.0 now, right? They discontinued some of the 3.5 and older models. They're taking that out. And the 4.0 or 4 Omni version, they call it, is available for free for everyone. So that's extremely accurate. It's good. I pay for a ChatGPT subscription because I do a lot with it. And there's some other models like the O3 and O4 that has some really good visualization insights on there. So that's why I pay for it. But if you don't want to, totally fine. I don't get any kickbacks from OpenAI. I wish, but Sam has said no right now. So the other question, I'll get your question over here. Other question John had was about uploading information from social media into like charts from social media into ChatGPT. If that's allowable. I would say it probably just depends on your organization and whether or not your organization permits that when it comes to social security of social media rights and things like that. Some people look at that as if it's publicly available social media, then you're good to go. Some people say that no, if even social media is not allowable. So I would check with your legal team and with your IT department just to make sure you're not doing anything crazy. So kind of a punt on that one for that question. Just depends on your context. So question back here.
What's the benefit of paying as opposed to not? What do you get for the subscription?
So the question over here in our folks on the webinar is what's the benefit for paying for a ChatGPT subscription versus not? Number one is volume. You get a lot more chats and a lot more, you can do a lot more, interactions with it as opposed to the free version. You're limited. I can't remember the number of chats per month, but it's limited that way. You also don't have access to, we have limited access to deep research. So the tool we're working on right now, I think you get like 3 per month, where on the paid version, it's like 30 per month. So much different. On the paid version as well, you get these different advanced reasoning tools, O4, O3, O4 Mini High, that has some really good reasoning, especially with visualizations. So if you've seen, there's a trend going on with AI and things like that, where people are taking a picture outside and having it uploaded to ChatGPT and saying, ChatGPT, tell me where this is. And ChatGPT is able to identify where that is. So the visualization capabilities here, I was playing with that a little bit yesterday, but wasn't quite fine-tuned enough to be able to do this. But taking like really messy charts that you really can't tell what's going on, and then having it grab the data from it and put it into tables. It could do it like 60 to 70% of the time. And then also with, say, zoning maps to say, okay, here's a zoning map of a city. Give me a breakdown of percentage by land use type. And I was able to get me about 89% of the way there, but there was some little things with the PDF and with the visualization, but still think about that 89% of the way done. And yet, so this is the worst it'll ever be for AI, which is pretty incredible. Lisa, any other questions on our end over there?
No, that was it.
Okay, so over here.
I was just gonna add to that, that you can do projects as well, so that way you could reference your own project files, so that way going back in time, if you're working on the same or similar project, it organizes it a lot better instead of it being in chats.
Yes, yeah, so
Paper.
great point. Brett from the city of Yuma mentioned that you can actually do projects on the chat. You'll see here, if you open my thing right here, I have a couple projects on my end. One's for research, YouTube, SGR, these webinars, AI report. And so I have projects, that way I can go in there, it has all the insights right there, that project. I don't have to start over every single time we're doing it. So with that being said, we're about done here with this webinar. Thank you all on SGR side for allowing me to do this kind of a weird way of doing this format. Like I said, thank you all here also for bearing with me as I kind of went back and forth and had a couple of technical difficulties as we wrapped up here. But I think all in all, good. And for the folks in Yuma, I'm going to be here in your beautiful area for the next 2 days. So please, would love to talk with you, get to know you, learn about what you're doing in your community and your organization with AI, answer any questions you may have as best as possible. When I say answer questions, what I mean is I'm going to have ChatGPT answer your questions, and I'll let you know what ChatGPT says. So with that being said, Lisa, thank you so much. I appreciate your flexibility as well, too.
Thank you. Thank you, Micah.